Good afternoon, everybody. As Sucheta mentioned, that these segments that we both do are much longer in our full program. These are shorter versions of what we normally do, and I will take you through I'll start with the typical journey of a financial saver in this country, and it usually stops at big saving. Most people don't graduate towards investing, and that to investing smartly. So I call this Ghar Ki Kahani. This is what happens in every single house, that most of us earn a regular income, mainly salary, then start withdrawing for expenses. These days expenses are a lot, and many such expenses go away automatically from your bank account in the form of EMI, especially EMI for a home. Then we withdraw from the ATM and spend, and after this things start getting complicated. We usually do not have a plan. So money usually lies around in savings account, and then in a typical manner that Sucheta described, you walk into a bank or you in touch with your office accountant, and he says that you need to save. What is the best way of saving? Here is an insurance product, because that's where the commission is the maximum. So that's what it's pushed at you. These are, in the jargon of the financial world, these are push products. There's no pull. You don't get up in the morning and say, hey, I want to buy insurance. You don't do that. It's only when it's brought under your nose and say, hey, sign here, and then you go for it, and usually it's a wrong product. All right, or a share or a mutual fund because the market is going up. That's another thing that we get attracted to. The market keeps going up. Economic Times is writing every day. There are big headlines. Share market has reached a new high. Everybody's making money next to you. So you jump in one fine day, and then it's a wrong thing to do as usual. You probably buy something quite expensive. If you don't do any of those, and a lot of people are very careful, they may avoid all of those, but they still make a mistake, because their money is, as I said, usually lying in savings account, and one fine day they wake up and say a lot of money in savings account and move to FD, which gets you a little more interest, but not enough for many things that you would need 15, 20, 25 years in your financial life. So what will happen is, it's difficult to quantify unless I show you some numbers, which I'm going to show. It's very difficult to quantify, but most people are not able to realize what is the huge difference they can make by investing their own money much more carefully rather than keeping it only in bank FD. The difference is huge, and the huge difference can be linked to our own lives by saying, a lot of people who are in the 40s, they dream of retiring early. You can do that. When it's put in tangible terms, you probably understand. You can do that only if you start investing fairly early on, very, very carefully for the long term. All right. Unfortunately, the four most popular destinations of our money are not conducive to creating this fantastic wealth that you can create out of your own savings. Okay, these four things, as one we have already mentioned, is that bank FD, which gives you a low return; insurance, extremely low return, because typically the insurance that is sold to you is what is called an endowment plan, or a money back plan, or a whole life policy. All of these typically will give you around 4% to 6% return, not more than that. So keeping the money in bank FD is much better than giving it to an insurance company. And the reason for that is very simple. The insurance company takes your money and invests somewhere, right, to give you the return. Because they want to be very safe, because these are all safe insurance products. They invest in government bonds, and the government bonds typically give you 8%. It can go up and down a little bit with interest rate, but if the insurance company makes 8%, how much can it give you? Because then all the costs start coming in after that. All the cost to hire cricket stars or movie stars to publicize, for the commissions that they pay in the first year and the continuing commission. So there is very little money left for you, because if the total gross earnings itself is 8% or so. Gold is slightly better. Gold falls somewhere between around bank FD. So, but the problem with gold is that there is a tax, because it creates, if you earn a return on gold, it becomes capital gains. So you have to pay tax on that. So ultimately, post-tax return is low. Some people tend to invest in real estate. Now, between these four, the real estate over the long term will probably give a best return between these four. All right, so it probably will give around 11% or 10% or 9.5% thereabouts. It's never going to give you 20%. That has never happened in India. But it's a wrong thing to buy your own house, which is a great thing to do, but it's a wrong thing to buy your own house and also invest all of your other savings into another house, because what's going to happen is that your money, unless you're making fabulous salary checks every month, what is going to happen is that all of your money is lying illiquid, because when you need the money, you can't pay for through a house. All right, I mean, you can give it on rent and you earn a little bit of cash flow, but still it is not the best option to invest your money for the long term. They will usually not beat inflation. In fact, the problem with calculating returns on real estate is that nobody really knows. The returns from all the other asset classes, the first three, are possible to calculate. It's very easy to know. The example that I gave you about insurance, it's easy to calculate how much return you make. It's very difficult to calculate the return you're going to make by investing in another property, because nobody has that database, nobody has done that calculation. Meanwhile, one of the things, whether you like it or not, whether you're investing or not, one of the things that's constantly eating away your savings is what is called the inflation. That's a permanent erosion of capital, permanent erosion of our purchasing power in a country like India, where inflation has been high, and it's going to continue to remain high for the simple reason that the overall economic condition is not conducive to reducing inflation. So to give an example, if somebody says that I'm going to give you 1 crore after, let's say, 30 years. Now sitting today, 1 crore looks like a huge number, all right? But if the inflation is around 7% only, that value of that 1 crore is only 11 lakhs after 30 years. So a lot of people buy insurance with this kind of a mistaken belief. So you buy an insurance policy, I'll get 1 crore after 30 years. It's a lot of money, but at the end of 30 years, the purchasing value of that 1 crore after 30 years is only about 11 lakhs. If there's 7% inflation, if there's 10% inflation, the value is only about 4 lakhs. It's how your money gets eroded. Now think of a situation of the previous slide where I gave 4 examples of low returns. If you're earning low returns and that return is continuously getting eroded, you're having a situation of low return plus high inflation, you're going to actually have some kind of a capital loss. There's a value is actually losing. It's not gaining, although as scientists tell us, we have an apparent illusion, a money illusion of thinking that I have earned 1 crore. My value has gone up. The purchasing value has actually gone down in a situation like this. What is even more dangerous of this generation, I mean the previous generation and this generation, is the longevity is increasing. People are living much longer. And there are multiple sort of improvements in healthcare to ensure that you're going to live longer. So if you're going to live longer in this kind of situation, that's even worse. Because typically after you retire around 60 or so, if you have some kind of a special skill, like you're a doctor or you're a lawyer, you can keep earning. But most people retire and the regular monthly salary stops. If that stops and they live longer, and then they live in a fixed income product which is losing value, is going to be an absolute killer. So what you can do in all of these cases, if you know this, that you can make your stories a little different. Instead of thinking that you're going to have a very, very smooth life, think of the various ways, various things that could possibly go wrong, including what I have described, and take just simple 3 steps. You have to save enough, buy health insurance and term plans early, which takes care of the protection aspect, and invest very, very carefully and decide where to put your money so as to create an inflation beating high post-tax return. Let me repeat, your post-tax return and your post-inflation return has to be high enough so that the money that actually grows is able to take care of you for years together, including until your death. A simple chart is going to explain to you. Usually we spend a lot of time explaining this to college students, but all that is encapsulated in a simple chart. How saving enough and starting early can make a huge difference. So let's take the example of these three characters. First guy is Vimal. All of them are earning, take a simple example, all of them are earning 10% only. And Vimal, let's say, invest 15,000 rupees. He starts in year 0, or year 1, and invested 20 years. That's another guy, Rohan. He says, let him invest, let me spend money, let me have a good life. I'll start investing 5 years later. And he actually starts investing more, okay? I'm sorry, there's a mistake there. Vimal will be 10,000 and Rohan will be 15,000. So he starts investing 15,000, which is 50% more. Even then, he can't catch up with Vimal. Okay. Somebody like Rahul who starts 10 years later and invests 25,000. He says that let them invest. I'll catch up. I'll earn more. I'll higher salary. I'll start investing later. He can't catch up by investing 150% more. So this, if you see the nature of this graph, they start very slowly. They start moving there's hardly any movement when they start, but they start accelerating as you go towards the end, which in a simple way is the effect of compound interest, or in a simple way, which means that the money is making money. All right, it's your own money which is making more money as time goes by. So the more time that you give to it in terms of your savings, the better it is. Even if you can't save enough, if you start as early as possible, half the job is done, because it's a time that is working in your favor. Where do you invest? It depends on multiple things. As I said, you have to earn high post-inflation, post-tax return. So anything that is taxable is less preferable. Anything that is tax-free is more preferable, if other things are equal. Anything that beats inflation is more preferable. Anything that does not beat inflation is less preferable. Volatile versus steady. This is a tricky thing, because human mind always wants something that is steady and predictable. So if it's a smooth line, we can understand this and we can then extend that line much easier. If something that is moving up and down, it's very difficult to extend that line into the future and see what is going to happen in future. But there is a way of getting around this. I'll explain this. Time frame. You have to decide whether you're investing for the short term or you're investing for the long term. So once you decide on these issues, once you categorize them, that am I investing for the short term or not? Am I able to deal with volatility or not? Am I investing in a product which gives good post-inflation and post-tax returns? And what is the financial objective it is going to serve? Which product? Once you start looking at financial products from these 4 different angles, everything is just going to be very, very simple and easy. Now, in terms of returns, I said post-inflation and post-tax returns is what you need to calculate to put them all on equal footing. Sensex is up by around 14% or so post-tax over 20 years. Why I mentioned post-tax? Because all long-term returns of Sensex, which is any return made more than 1 year. Income tax department categorizes returns as long-term or short-term. Short-term for stocks or mutual funds is less than 1 year. Anything that is held for more than 1 year, gains are tax-free. Okay, and it's incredible for those who want to earn a higher post-tax returns. 14% post-tax. This has been the historical sort of return that you'd get. A lot of people ask us, this is history, 20 years. Am I likely to get the same kind of returns in future? Yes, you're likely to get a high return in future, much higher than any other asset classes. That I'm quite certain about. It may not be exactly 14. It could be 18, depending on when you start and when you end, or it could be 12. But it's certainly not going to be 3 over 20-year period, because there are certain macroeconomic reasons why it is going to be very high. Gold has been 9% compounded over 20 years pre-tax, and post-tax it's a little complicated. I won't go into it, but there is an indexation benefit that you get if you hold for the long term, but usually there is a 20% tax minus the cost of inflation. ULIPs, which is unit linked insurance plan, I've been very generous. Some ULIPs even fetch about 3% or 4%, but roughly you should be expecting around 6 to 8%. This is post-tax, this is tax-free. Banks, FDs, 8.5% is the best, and after 30% tax, after all, you get a tax-free interest only up to a point, but after tax it's about 6.2. If it's 8, then it's even less than that. Traditional insurance plans fetch 4 to 6%, some of them even less than that. So this is the range of products that you are likely to sort of invest in, and this is the expected return post-inflation, post-tax. Okay, now you can very well judge if inflation roughly is around 6% or 7% or 8%. Take your sort of assumption. You can see which product can beat inflation over the long term, and which product can sort of give you high post-tax and high post-inflation returns. Now, point number 2, whether the product is volatile or very, very steady. If you want something to not move up and down, to upset you and sleep peacefully, you have to give up on returns. You can't get both. You can't get a steady product which doesn't move and yet gives you high returns. It just doesn't work that way in the financial world. If you want low volatility, you will have to settle for low returns, like a bank FD. If you put 1 lakh, it remains 1 lakh. It doesn't become 95,000 one day and 1 lakh 2,000 the next day. It doesn't move. The capital is fixed. Okay. The second point in this is not the opposite of that. It doesn't say that high volatility means high returns. It doesn't say that. Okay, it says that high returns mean high volatility. It's the opposite, which means if you seek high returns, you have to suffer high volatility. It's not the exact opposite of that. There's a slight difference between the two sentences. The first emphasizes that I am seeking low volatility. Therefore, you will have to set for low returns. The second sentence says I am seeking higher returns. Okay, nobody seeks high volatility. People they want high returns. Therefore, you will have to live with higher volatility. This is given. There's no getting away from this. This is the core of finance. Stocks and equity funds, as you would know by now, where my bias is the best, because the numbers say so, is the best for creating long-term returns, but they are volatile and so bad for short term. So it's not that you can buy a stock today, hold it for 3 months, and they are not going to be volatile and you're going to get high returns. That's not the way it works. You just have to hold it for the long term. Why did I suddenly bring in the long term business into this question of volatility and returns and so on? Because volatility reduces with time. I will give you 3 charts to show what I mean. This is Sensex yearly returns. Okay. I've taken up to 2014, but the picture is the same for any year, any time period that you take. If somebody looks at this, and I'd given you 14% earlier, does it look like a 14%? It looks like a random up and down and very unsettling. It's not something that a bank deposit holder will take money out and put into this, because they'll say, 3-4 years of good return, then suddenly it falls and goes up. 2 years it doesn't do anything, it's flat, then up again, then hugely down. How do we deal with something like this? This is not what we want, even if we want higher returns. The solution is absolutely simple. This is a yearly return. Next chart will tell you about a 5-year return period, which means from 90 to 95, 91 to 96, and so on and so forth. So don't look at yearly return, look at a 5-year, as they call it, 5-year rolling return. Okay, because 1 year is shifted. The moment I do that, I have fewer losing 5-year periods. As you can see, just 2 or 3. And the whole chart has become much more steady. There are more positive returns and it's much more steadier. Now I go one step further, I look at 10-year. And this is exactly why everybody tells you invest for the long term. The moment I put a 10-year rolling return, the picture is much more steady and much easier to understand. This is something that we can deal with. A couple of 10-year periods, it's not yearly. A couple of 10-year periods, a little dip. Yeah, it happens. The drought and inflation was high and God knows what. So bad periods. But overall, any start and end date 10-year returns have been far better than bank FDs or insurance or gold or whatever. Okay. And this is only Sensex. And Sensex has all kinds of stock, good stocks, bad stocks, and so on. I'm not even getting into in this session into mutual funds, which always routinely the best 25% of the mutual funds always beat Sensex. So if you see their 10-year return chart, it's much more attractive. Okay? For instance, HDFC equity mutual fund is not doing well last 2-3 years, but from a 20-year period, if you take, they have a 10 lakh rupee invested over 20 years in HDFC mutual fund. It's gone up 44 times. Okay, So that's like 22% compounded annual return. And this is only 14% or so which I have described. So you have to choose. If you choose, you can do better. It all depends on how much of passion and interest and time. But basically, think of shifting away from bank FD. The third point in that slide was, what is my time frame? So first, if you remember, was return. Second was volatility, and third was the time frame. The time frame, as if it's a short time frame, you can't obviously invest in anything that is volatile, that goes up and down. That would be foolish. So you would want to keep your capital safe, earn a little bit of return on it, whatever that return may be. But your primary objective is that capital has to be safe. You can't gamble with your capital in the stock market or in equity mutual funds. So it should be in an absolutely safe product like a bank FD or a liquid mutual fund or a fund, or even if you are those who are little financial savvy, maybe a short-term debt mutual fund where the fluctuation is much less. The moment you say, this money is there for 5 years, my goal is 5 years later, then you can start sort of thinking in terms of investing a little bit in stocks and equity mutual funds, because you have given yourself a 5-year time frame where you can go through the volatility and still come out better. And anything that's more than 5 years, we usually say anything that's more than 7 years, you can invest in risky products, which in India essentially means stocks and equity mutual funds. The fourth point in that slide was goals. Now, fortunately, there are specific products designed to meet specific goals, and I've just given a sort of rough description of that. If you want to buy a house, so I've given a rough chart of this. Anybody who wants to buy a flat, home loan is the product to go for. Obviously, there's no point in investing in stocks to buy, an apartment. Why? Because the government, between two different sections of Income Tax Act, those who are paying taxes, they get 2.5 lakhs plus 1.5 lakhs. That's 3.5 lakhs of tax break today a young person, a salaried employee, is able to get when he takes a home loan and buys an apartment. That's something no government anywhere in the world, I think, gives this kind of a tax break for home loans, and it's worthwhile to avail of that. But as you can see, that if you want to protect yourself, life insurance, you should buy term policies, not buy life insurance, those investment cum insurance schemes. Retirement, best long-term and equity funds. Why? Because long term, I have explained, the longer the term, the better it is. If you want to save taxes, there's provident fund, public provident fund, and equity linked saving schemes. We generally say ELSS because that again is a equity mutual fund which gives you an opportunity. So depending on your goal, there is a product, and it's very important not to mix one with the other, which means that you should not be saving for retirement by buying a pension plan of an insurance company. You shouldn't be doing that, because you're going to have very little money in your pension account over the years. So do not mix. Keep all of these things separate. Goal A, this product. Goal B, longer term, a different product. And it's all very, very simple. Those who are in the highest tax bracket, who are paying 30% tax or so, have to be very, very mindful of where to invest in terms of the post-tax return. That's really critical for them, because it's criminal to earn 1 lakh rupees and let the government take away 3 lakhs from that and not save that money if you can legally. So remember, tax department is waiting for you to tax returns. I gave the example of the tax on your income, but now there is on almost all financial products, there is a tax on your gains as well. So there is a tax on interest. Okay, there would be a tax on your pension, your annuity that you're going to get. So there is tax not just on your income, but on the income that you make, or the capital gains that you make on your savings and investment. So that you need to protect. The 10%, those who are in the 10% tax bracket need not worry that much, because then they should go for they can invest more in taxable products like bank FD, because tax rates don't apply to them. Moment it's 20% more, you really have to start seriously thinking of investing. Just to give an example, you can invest, let's say, 1 lakh rupees in bank FD. Okay, only a little bit of interest is free from tax. After that, you have to start paying tax on your interest. The same 1 lakh rupees you can invest in a bond fund for 3 years. The moment you invest it in a bond fund, you do not pay tax on an interest, because bond funds don't pay any interest. Bond funds increase in value, but the tax on that is only 20%. Whereas a tax on bank FD interest after a certain level is full tax, whatever your slab level is. Okay, so apparently they looks like the similar kind of product, a bond fund and a bank FD. One is much more tax efficient, one is not tax efficient. So moment you are in 20% plus, you have to start thinking of that. And 30% people obviously have to invest a lot of money in tax-free bonds, which are all government bonds listed in the stock market. They get you a yield of 7% or so. I'm really surprised to see not many people are investing in tax-free bonds. You can invest while the government is making an issue, and post-issue it gets listed like a stock, so you can buy through a stockbroker also. Those who are in the highest tax bracket, these are the two products they have to necessarily invest in, which is an equity related product, whether it's directly stocks or equity mutual funds, and tax-free bonds. If they do not invest in these two products, they're just leaving a lot of money for the government unnecessarily. At Moneylife, we have looked at all the financial products that are available except post office products. We say don't go to post office. It's nerve-wracking to put your money and take your money out. So apart from post office, these are the products that we have listed, and we have classified them into three groups. You can look at products in multiple ways. You can say are they taxable, not taxable? They are long-term or short-term. They're volatile, non-volatile. We have put it all together into three categories by looking at all of these. First, this group is market linked, meaning they're listed or they're traded, or our gains and losses depends on the price that we buy and the price that we sell. That doesn't happen with bank FD. There's no price. You give the money to the bank bank gives back to you with interest. Let's say a stock, it's listed. You pay 100 rupees, you sell it at 150, you make 50 rupees, you pay tax on 50 rupees. If it is less than 1 year, if it's more than 1 year, you don't pay tax. Okay, so there's market linked, which means they fluctuate, they go up and down. All of these products are market linked. Equity shares, equity mutual funds, portfolio management services. You give money to a broker or a mutual fund, they manage it for you. High net worth people do that. It's a market linked product because they take your money and invest in shares. So it comes to the same thing. Then there are hybrid mutual funds. Say 60% is kept in fixed income, let's say 85% is kept in fixed income, 15% is they buy shares. It's hybrid. That's also market linked. They go up and down. The 15% part and also the 85% part go up and down with the market. Gold and gold exchange traded fund. It's not a fixed income. Nobody gives you any interest. You pay at a price, buy at a price, and you sell at a price. It's market linked. All right. Unit linked insurance policies, they take your money. Most of the time they're buying a listed product, a bond or a share, again market linked. National pension system, take your money, either they're putting 15% in stocks or you're putting 50% in stocks, depending on what your choice is, whether you're a government employee or not. So the ones that I've grayed out are the ones that we do not prefer, either because the returns are low or because there's a third party involved, like in case of a portfolio management services, and we do not think that you should trust a third party to manage your money in this fashion. Their returns have not been good. So these are the market linked products. The second group of product, they also fluctuate but are a little less risky than the first one. So these are corporate bonds and debt mutual funds, monthly income, tax-free bonds listed in the market. We prefer the first three, subject to very careful scrutiny of the first and second. Third one is not a problem. All tax-free bonds are issued by government organizations. There is nothing to see in that. You just have to look at the yield and buy. Then comes monthly income plan, misnomer. They don't give you a monthly income. It's again an 85-15 kind of a thing. Capital protection fund or mutual funds, corporate fixed deposits, government bonds, fixed maturity plans. They are all in some way or the other linked to the market, but less risky than the first group. Third group is absolutely safe. I mean, absolutely fixed. Most of them are safe. Okay, tax saver bank FDs, the provident fund group, bank fixed deposit, post office deposit, national savings certificate, infrastructure bonds, and traditional insurance products. Yeah, the capital is more or less safe. Nobody is going to lose money by putting money in in a good bank. Nobody is going to lose money by putting money in PPF. So most people are attracted to this category because the capital is safe. The human mind is interested in safety and predictability. So most people go for this. Unfortunately, as I mentioned right in the beginning, this will also give you very low returns. I just summarize before we invite and listen to Ms. Pandey. How much to save? Save at least 25% of your income. There's a theory, we were just telling one of the students here, that you should postpone your purchase of your house until you're 35, because the real estate rates are so high. If you start earning at 25 and you save till 35 and invest a huge chunk of your savings in a good quality equity mutual fund or stocks, you could buy a better house 10 years later rather than paying all the money, EMI money and the interest to a bank or a housing finance company. In which products? Fixed income, that is a combination of this: bank FD, high quality corporate bonds, tax-free bonds, provident fund group, equity funds. Why would you do that? Because this is the only way to beat inflation and create long-term wealth. Most of the other products you do not need. Please do avoid. Thank you very much.